So it feeds in multiple ways, right? Because, if I go back and we, okay, well, what's a black religion or African American religion? We talked about that, right? And that is what it is. You know, is what we understand as religion tied to resolving trauma? And we say that it is.
Yes.
And we know that generationally, we carry trauma.
Yes.
Right.
And we carry trauma through our actions, and we demonstrate that trauma through our actions. And sometimes we might project that onto the next generation that affects their decision making.
Right.
You might carry a certain type of trauma experience or a certain traumatic regimen and act that out on your children through religion. And, you might send them off on a whole entire different path.
Right.
So these are the different ways that I think that it applies, because we coin it as, well, it's understood as a sphere of influence, right? But really breaking down the dynamic, right, is important. Or I think that it's important, especially in this particular time when, I mean, you can just look at, our generation, the generations behind us, they're looking. They're asking for clairvoyance in this area.
Okay.
So again, if the overarching theme is making a decision, right, and we have these different dynamics that influence that decision, boom, this is where we're at. So what are we doing about it?
Each one teach one.
Each one teach one.
It's like with my son, he's kind of more on the logic sphere, but in his actions and a lot of things he does, he remembers a lot of the teachings that I gave him when he was younger. And of course, you all know that, his mother, they moved away. So I had few and far times in between to be spend the actual good quality, what I consider a good amount of time. Yeah. But in our conversations, now he's 18 years old, the feedback and the interaction that I get is based on the foundation. Mm-hmm. And I allow him, meaning when he's talking, I listen and I make suggestions. And I told him, like, listen, I put in as much as I could in the time that I had with you. So now it's on you to take that, what you agree with, what you disagree with, because that's what we do. That's what we as human beings do. And as you move out into the world and have these experiences, you really create a system that's you. You see what I'm saying? So going back to the family structure in 2023, I think it's very important that, I don't want to say get away from, but that people look at themselves and how they deal with those in their family, and how are they leading their family with a iron rod, mm-hmm. or are they actually having interactions to where they're understanding and seeing the heart of what each person is saying and how they want to move forth in their spiritual, move forward spiritually. And all you do is just guide. Just be there to be a guidance and be that.
Right.
Sometimes you don't always have to read something to make a point.
And see that was what you just said was going to segue into my next question. Mm-hmm. Right? How has leadership, or what we, contend as leadership, how has that influenced our identity within religion? And I think we probably have already talked about some of it. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But you said just be a guide.
Right.
You don't always got to say, hey, look, get me that out of Shemot or Exodus chapter 3.
Right.
Right. Because the answer is right here.
Right.
Right. But, you're talking about a thinking system within a being that may not relate to that. Go ahead.
So, something that Steve and I was talking about is like, you could tell today you tell a child something, and as you're talking, they're pulling out their phone, fact checking you.
Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But when you're talking, having a organic conversation, it's a whole different experience. Especially when you listen, you're listening with your heart and everything. It's a different experience than, hold on, son, let me go get this book and read it to you. It's like these children are different. They're like, dang, Dad, everything he say come out of that book. A man wrote that book. So my dad, whether the believer is thinking divine man inspired by God wrote the book, but for somebody that doesn't compute logic that way or compute that way, they're like, dang, this person don't even got does he have a brain of his own, an intellect of his own, a reasoning of his own? Or does he get all of the information in a pre-uploaded system? Because it is a system. So it's just interesting to look at things from that perspective. Not to say reading from the book is wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying think about the person that's kind of detached from that perspective and are looking at things that are more, Dad, talk to me.
Right.
Mom, talk to me.
You got to give them something that's tangible to them right then and there.
Right.
Whatever works for them at that moment.
Right.
Not the book that was written 3,000, 4,000 years ago.
I told my the idea that I have with this was to start teaching my children to learn how they apprehend their soul's movement and instruction. Apprehend and comprehend. Their soul.
Simplify that for me. Apprehend to capture. Okay, their soul's movement and the soul structure, the makeup of it.
It's instruction.
Instruction.
Right. Because I think that, so if we go off this statement that a lot of people say is as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he
shall be.
So shall he be. Right. And there's a lot to unpack in just that statement alone. Right? Because a lot of people are detached from what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and what they're doing when thoughts are happening throughout the process of the day.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So what I'm venturing to say to, that generation that so happens to be in my household is you do yourself a lot of benefit by capturing your soul's instructions, which means that, you got to be quiet long enough to get that understanding. You know what I'm saying? Like, and again, it's up to you. You know what I'm saying? Like you have the opportunity to take your journey a skillful way, where it's, less strenuous, or you can do it the other way, where it becomes more strenuous. But all in all, man, like these are some tools that you can use to do that. Just calm down, throttle back just a little bit, right? And just listen. Perceive what's going on. And something I talked to Zokane about, which I shared it with both you brothers, right? Where something simple as when you're breathing, breathe in the perception, exhale out the truth,
right?
Of what that is. Right. And you know what? I'm still chewing on that because I wasn't getting nothing like that when I was
right.
But
it's out here. We're just not comprehending it as that.
It's a frequencies, okay?
Exactly. So once you come into a frequency like that, it may take you 20 years to get that.
You feel me? So, think about being on that other frequency where you tuned in. And I'm not saying it's bad. It's just, when you talk about the progression of the soul, and I would venture to say that most people, they come to a point where they say, you know what? I've had my run with what's material. And some people don't. They caught up in that life, and that feels good.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But generally, I think that all mankind wants to understand fully the components of their soul. And they're going to do that. They're going to seek it out the way that they seek it out.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So
go ahead.
It always comes back to how does this all affects the sphere, that sphere of influence when it comes like is it an important sphere? Is it important to be a sphere of influence? Like, is it important as, just being so-called Black, African American, or just for everyone in general?
I think that it's important for everybody in general. I think that the labeling has caused a lot of the disconnect.
That's why I said the church versus the Black church and this church and that church. It's just the church. It's just expressed differently through different avenues.
And that's what I'm saying. Right. You can't say that it's not supposed to be here because it's here.
It's here. Right.
You know what I'm saying? And, as you strive in reconciling that idea, right? The Creator, we can say that the Creator allows these things for the benefit and progression of your soul.
Right.
When you've spent a good majority of your life only seeing things from the negative aspect, you tend to get tired of it. You know what I'm saying?
Because it doesn't work with your spirit.
It doesn't. Right? Like, so it's like, okay, well, you're not the real this, that, and the third. I'm the real this, that, and the third. And
it's dealing. That's strictly polarity thinking.
That's
it's going back to the garden, and we talk about now man has known good and evil, or Tob and Ra.
Right.
It's a perspective. It's a very, this on this side is one thing, and this on that side is one thing. I have to choose one of these things.
Right.
And
when it's all come down and said it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. It's a
just
triangle.
Different.
It's a triangle.
Different degrees.
The Creator's here.
Right.
At the top of the triangle.
Right.
What you consider Tob is on one side, and what you consider Ra is on the other side.
Right.
So if he's here and you're trying to meet the Creator, what side? Right. It rains on the good as well as the wicked.
Exactly.
So what are we aiming for?
Right.
Well, I'm gonna answer that question.
Go ahead.
Right. Maybe we're not aiming, and I hope that when you're saying aiming, like what are we striving for?
Right.
Maybe we're not aiming. Maybe we're trying to control. You want to control not only your outcome, but you may actually feel like, listen, I gotta get them to see it like how I see it, because it might be too late.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like if they don't see it the way that I see it, then it's too late. It's too late for them. They're gonna, you make up all these things.
Why it's too late?
Why it's too late?
Right.
Right. Not probably considering that, well, maybe, what's going on in their life is relevant for their learning.
Right.
How many years did the children of Israel circle around in the wilderness?
Right.
Just as an example.
Right.
40 years.
According to the text.
It said that they went around and did the same thing for 40 years. Mm-hmm. Some people don't even go past 40.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, to answer, going back to your question, how does this all tie in? Right? It ties in because through this influence, you know what I'm saying, more and more people are uninfluenced. More and more people are asking why. More and more people are, there's a lot that's just happening, with this particular dynamic. And of course, you can say it starts in the family or with the family.
Right.
Right. And then, as we kind of get through the rest of these, we're going to see it's all one thing.
Right.
Different spectrums on one line.
Right.
See, it's just even funny when you talked about the wilderness period, the 40 years. For me, it's like I heard something different.
Go ahead.
I hear, you were given something. It was yours. I'm taking all these words I read in the book and I'm conceptualizing them in my being, in my mind space, and I see like, okay, the Creator, whatever that is, he, she, it that exists, said that